All right, welcome to our NBA. The R stands for Ryan. This is my basketball podcast. Today we've got a few topics for you. I'm going to go through the All-NBA roster and give you some feedback on that came out this week. Talk about the Lakers versus Denver and give you my preview of what happens in that series. Sixers versus C's, Game 7, coming up tomorrow, Sunday. Heat versus Knicks, give you my thoughts on that series that closed out yesterday. And then I want to talk about something I noticed throughout the year, and I've had conversations with my brother on, who is going to be the better guard in 2024, De'Aaron Fox or SGA? So we'll get into that. All right, all NBA analysis. So the all NBA teams, NBA first team was Luka Doncic, SGA, JT, Jason Tatum, Giannis, and Joel Embiid. All NBA second team was Steph Curry, Don Mitchell, Jim Butler. Jaylen Brown makes it as a forward. Good for him. And the Joker, Nikola Jokic. And then all NBA third team was De'Aaron Fox, Dame Lillard, LBJ the King, Julius Randle, and then Domantas Sabonis, which was a bit of a surprise. So let's look at the first team. I'll be straight up and down. I don't think Luka Doncic should have been first team over De'Aaron Fox, or for that matter, over Steph Curry. The Dallas Mavericks completely underachieved. They're not that bad of a team, particularly with Kyrie, who's a plug-and-play scoring guard, and Luka's consistently out of shape. He doesn't get after you defensively, which is a big criteria for me for any big wing. Not that he, is an all NBA or all defensive first-team type of guy, but he looks completely disinterested. Even in the playoff last year, he looked completely disinterested in even trying to guard anyone, which, I'm not a big fan of that, right? I feel like I was talking to my brother the other day. I feel like if Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, D. Wade, Scott Pippen, other big wings, and I know D. Wade wasn't that big, but other big elite wings in their prime could get after you defensively and still give you 25 efficient points and playmaking and scoring per night, then these new age wings can be able to do that too. And he doesn't do that. And so I think he should have been relegated to first team. I'll say this. I do think Foxy or Curry could have taken that other guard slot. Curry carried the Warriors. Their third best player, which is, I don't feel like Klay's really their second best player anymore. I don't know that they have a clear-cut second best player. I feel like that's Andy Wiggins. But, even if Klay, let's say he's still their second best player, Andy's their third. We know Dre's important, but I'm thinking from a scoring perspective, offensively specifically. Andy's gone for 3 months out of the year dealing with his father's illness, and Steph is kind of left to carry that team, and I think he dragged them to a 6th seed and then beats the Sacramento Kings basically by himself and on the road. So I feel like Steph or Foxy could have got that first team guard slot. And I do want to say this before I go on to the second team and third team analysis. I think it's silly. I think it made sense in the 70s and 80s, late 90s, less so in the early 2000s. They were still doing it. It's completely irrelevant for them to make these teams by position, 2 guards, 2 forwards, 2 centers. Teams haven't been doing that in a decade. The Warriors started that change, even with the Nelson Warriors, started that change in terms of positionless basketball. We're already there. Teams are consistently shooting 35, 43s a game. You've got, guys that are 6'8", 6'9", Kevin Durant, LeBron James. These guys have been handling the ball. They've been playmaking. They've been the lead, ball handlers for a quarter or two. So this just seems really archaic for David Stern and Adam Silver, who are otherwise two pretty smart guys, to not have eliminated this. This should be positionless, and the best 5 players should be the first team, second best 5 should be the second team, and third best 5. But it's media, and the media is silly. The traditional old media that covers the NBA is largely silly and out of touch, which is a big reason a lot of these player podcasts and these other podcasts have grown and mushroomed in popularity, because the traditional media really doesn't know anything. We have to put a center on first team. No, you don't. Now, it works out that at the moment we've got 2 really good centers, Joel and Nikola, playing very well, so there's no real big thing there. But those 2 guys would have made it. I mean, those 2 guys could have made the first team together if we didn't have this silly rule. And so I went back and I looked at the mid-'90s, and to make my point, these were the elite centers we had playing in the mid-'90s. And by elite, if you weren't watching NBA in the mid-'90s, just go to YouTube and Google some of these names. So we had Diesel, Shaquille O'Neal, Pat Ewing, Dream, Hakeem Olajuwon, the Admiral, David Robinson, Alonzo Mourning, a young Alonzo Mourning, I think it was his second or third year. And then we had Dikembe Mutombo, who was playing at, obviously he wasn't as good offensively as those guys, but he was an elite defensive center. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 centers we had playing, 5 of them offensively and defensively playing at elite levels. And you're telling me that we could only slot 3 of them in because we can only have 1 center on each team? That's silly. So, Adam Silver, if you're listening, I'm guessing you're not, but if you are listening, let's cut out the silliness. It should be positionless. The 5 best players on the first team, the 5 best players next best on the second, and then the next best on the third. So SGA, no problem with him on first. JT, no problem with him on first. Giannis, obviously no problem. And then Joel, I thought, really broke out this year as much as he could from how he already was pretty good in the last few years. But I think he really took a step up. It'd be interesting to see what he does tomorrow in a Game 7. I know a couple years ago when they lost to the Raptors on that Kawhi shot, it really tore him up. So we'll see if he can use that as fuel, or if all that crying and gesticulating was just for the fans, right? And by fuel, I mean like Jordan-like fuel or Kobe-like fuel. Am I going to remember that and then use that to give a 55-point, 13-rebound, 6-block performance? 11 for 12 from the line performance, or am I going to be ho-hum? That's what I mean by use that as fuel. So we'll see. I'll be NBA second team, so Steph Curry, I already made my feelings clear on that. I think he could have been first. Don Mitchell, I'm not a huge Don Mitchell fan. My brother and I were discussing him yesterday. I think he's small for a big guard. I think he's only about 6'2". He doesn't get after you defensively either, although he is better than Luka. I've never seen him really get after anybody. For example, this first-round playoff series, I would have expected him, after Jalen Brunson got going for the Knicks, I would have expected Don Mitchell to take that challenge and say, this is the playoffs, right? I'm a veteran. I need to make a name for myself. I need to get to the finals. I need to get back to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I would have expected him to take that challenge and shut it down, or at least make it more difficult for Jalen, but that didn't happen. So, again, I could see Foxy, De'Aaron Fox, or Dame Lillard not Dame. They had a down year. I could see De'Aaron Fox definitely in that second guard spot on the second team. Jim Butler, nothing to say there. In case you guys are wondering, Jimmy Butler is officially better than Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. I just want to make that clear, right? Yes, those two gentlemen may be more talented than Jimmy. Their games may even be prettier, but being on the court and available for 82 plus the playoffs is, again, part of my Jordan, Kobe, LeBron-like criteria. And I'm a huge Kawhi fan. I just don't see how you can load manage for a year to make the playoffs and then get into the playoffs and then you can't play. I don't get that. They load managed him all year, because they wanted to have him fresh for the playoffs. And then he got into the playoffs and he could give you 2 games, and that was it. So that was a little disappointing. To me, that matters, and for that reason, I'm proclaiming Jim Butler is better than Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Jaylen Brown, I'm happy for him. I love Jaylen. He gets after you defensively. His offensive game has come a long ways. He can play at 3 levels. He's fun to watch. The mask is off. Incidentally, I said before Game 6, I said Jaylen needs to take that mask off. He was missing way too many free throws and way too many mid-range jump shots. And then, in Game 5, he was missing too many free throws and too many mid-ranges. And then Game 6, he took the mask off. And he didn't play super well. I think he only had 18 points, but they got it done, which is all that matters. Jokic, I have no problem with him on the second team. I'm actually really watching him game for game now in the playoffs, and the guy he's really good, particularly offensively. He's really good and hard to stop. So, third team, Foxy, Dame Lillard, no problem there. LBJ, no problem there. Julius Randle, I'm not a huge Julius Randle fan. I think he's limited offensively. I don't think he's an elite athlete. He's much more of a tweener than a serious wing player. So I could, again, if we were positionless, then I don't think Randle makes this team at all, right? I mean, I could even see his teammate getting this spot, and I think again, Silver, we need to do something about that, because these need to be the best players in the NBA. This isn't football, okay? This is not football. This is basketball. There are very few positions that are prescribed anymore on a basketball court, and I think that's a good thing. And then Dami Sabonis, again, I think they finished second overall, third overall, second overall, third. Where did they finish? Let's see. They finished third behind the Grizz. This could have been Ja Morant again if we were positionless. And if we were positionless and we were Ja Morant, I wouldn't be upset. You know what? Next week I'm going to do a show and I'll do my positionless all NBA teams. So we'll do that and we'll see how that goes. So, all right, next up, Lakers versus Denver. Very excited that my Lake show closed it out yesterday. I went for a long bike ride after work, and as such, I was only able to stay up for a little bit of the first quarter before I was knocked out, and I woke up around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning to see that my Lake show had won, watched all the highlights on House of Highlights, and watched all the interviews, so very excited. I'm a huge LeBron stan. I'm not ashamed to admit that, and I like seeing the guy do well. I like watching his teams do well. And I'm happy. I do think they can beat Denver. I don't think it is a foregone conclusion that they can beat Denver. This is a different Lakers team. 2, AD is playing with a purpose that I don't think he's played for in a long time. I think he took some things for granted about his position in the NBA, and I think other bigs like Yanni, Joker, and Joel, quite frankly, passed him by. And I think Anthony Davis is seeing that, and I think he has something to say about it. And the ultimate have something to say about it is going to be this series. Jamal Murray's good. He doesn't get after you defensively. I'm worried about him offensively, but in the aggregate, I think Rui, I think Dennis Schroeder, I think D'Angelo, I think Reevesy. I think those 4 guys in the aggregate can give you enough offense, again, in the aggregate, right, can give you enough offense to counteract a Jamal Murray giving you, 25 or 30. It'll be different nights. Some nights it'll be Reevesy. Some nights it might be Reevesy and Denny together. Some nights it'll be D'Lo, going for 30 one game. And it may be Rui, going 5 for 8 from 3 and giving you an efficient 25 or something like that. But I think they can counteract from an offensive perspective Denver doesn't get after you defensively. I've watched them. Aaron Gordon seems to be the only guy with the athletic ability and the want to really get after you defensively. I do think physically this will be LeBron's toughest matchup in this playoffs. Brooksy for the Grizzlies wasn't, he was too little. I mean, I think if you played ball, you saw that right away. I thought their coach put Dylan Brooks in a bad position. Dylan Brooks is 6'4", 220 pounds. I mean, that was not fair to him. Now, he could have done with all the talking and stuff, but from a matchup perspective, that was never going to go in his favor, even if LeBron is 38. And then this one with they just finished with the Warriors. You had Dre, and again, Dre is one of my favorite players. I love him, but he's getting older too. He's lost what little athleticism he had, and I don't know that was at 6'5", 6'6", that was going to be much of a matchup for LeBron. Looney is that was never going to be a matchup for LeBron. But I do think Aaron Gordon possesses the youth and athleticism in the physical matchup to make it difficult for a 38-year-old LeBron James. Now, I say that, and I'll just say this to Aaron Gordon if he's listening: 38, right? A few years ago at 34, you stood no chance. And in his prime at 27, LeBron would give you, an easy 45, dude. I mean, he'd average, 28-year-old LeBron James would average 45 against you. So that needs to be said, that the guy is 38. So going out there and acting like you're playing against his 27 or 28-year-old self is you shouldn't do that, right? Just know that you're playing against a 38-year-old man who will be 39 before this calendar year is over. So, but I do think it'll be a matchup for LeBron. I don't think Jokic has seen an athlete like AD before. I know they played in the bubble. I count it, I don't count it, but this is different. Jokic is playing at a much better level than he was, but I don't know that he's seen somebody like AD. And if I'm not mistaken, in the bubble, I think they had Howard, and I think Howard spent a lot of time on him, and Howard was still pretty good. But Joker's going to get a motivated, fully engaged, wanting to prove something AD. And if I'm honest, I think AD has the advantage. I think offensively, you've got to put Gordo on LeBron, which means they have no choice but to put Jokic on AD. And AD is quicker. He's more athletic. He can get what he wants at the rim. Jokic is not a rim protector. He's not even really a good position defender like a Dennis Rodman or a Kevin Love. So I think Jokic, offensively they can cancel each other out, but I think from a defensive standpoint, Jokic may be in trouble. And I say that because Jokic does not a lot, but he does some of his work outside the three-point line. And I don't mean shooting threes. I mean catching the ball, facing the basket, and then making plays via passing or backing down or juking and getting to the basket that way. But Anthony Davis is not a normal center. First of all, he's a power forward for the first 8 years of his career. He's got quick feet. He's got agility. He's got excellent balance. He's got great defensive instincts. So you're not going to be, it's not Brook Lopez or, Joel Embiid or, Nick Claxton out there that you're going against. It's a guy that can keep up with you, who can pick you up full court, who can turn you, who can sit down, who can stay down on shot fake. I mean, I think that whoever wins this matchup wins the series. And I want the Lakers to win. I will admit Denver looked really good against Phoenix, so that makes me nervous. I think Lakers can win it in 6 or 7, but they got to get it. They got to get it to 6 or 7. I don't think they can beat Denver in a quickie 4 or 5. I think if it goes to 7, I think LeBron turns back the clock and gives us a win in Denver. Like I said, I think AD for this series, it's going to be all about AD and Jokic. And the advantage to AD, he's got to want it. He's got to want it every game. He's got to want it every quarter. I mean, if I was him and I had seen how these three, Giannis, Jokic and Embiid, and they're all around the same age, have been elevated over him the last couple of years, I would be frothing at the mouth to get a piece of Jokic every single play, like every single play. That's just me, how I'm made up. Like I would want that, because this isn't Zach Lowe or people on ESPN prognosticating or talking. This is me and you on the court for 48 minutes for 7 games, and I'm going to make it clear to everyone who's watching, and the world will be watching, the basketball world will be watching. I'm going to make it clear that I'm better than you. And I haven't really seen that from AD before, but I would love to see it this series, because I think if that happens, I think they win the series. So, but it should be fun. It should be good basketball. I hate that I am in Central Time Zone, and that I think Denver's Mountain, so that should be okay. But we'll get at least 3 games, or at least 2 games, probably 3 in Pacific time. And I haven't been the best about being able to stay up, so we'll see. All right, we are going next to the Sixers and C's. They play tomorrow, Game 7. So I got to post this tonight. Sixers and C's are playing tomorrow, Game 7. I'm going C's by 10. I think it's been a good back-and-forth series, but I think the shot making of Jay Brown and Jay Tatum at home, plus the crowd at their back, is going to be too much for Jim Harden and Joel. And I talked about Luka needing to get in shape. Jim Harden really needs to get in shape, right? It's clear at this point. He's got to be at least 240, and to me that's too big for a 6'4", 6'5" guard to be that big. And he would only help himself and only prolong this third stage of his career, right? It's post, it's post his prime, but he's still a really, really good player. But he would prolong this phase by at least another year or two if he got down to 200, 210, and got serious about his conditioning and his weight. I think his weight has been a part of the reason he's only able to give you a good game every other game or every 2 games. And again, I think he would do well. But it's not like he or Luka don't know they're out of shape and know they're not fit. And to be honest, they're still able to do what they're able to do. Just imagine if they were fit, how much more they could do. And again, that's why I love Michael Jordan. That's why I love Kobe Bryant. That's why I love LeBron. They take care of themselves. They're serious about their craft. They talk serious, and then they train and they perform with a seriousness that most people who are watching professionals, particularly professional athletes, can appreciate. So when you see James Harden or you see Luka, or you see other players that are out of shape, it takes away from your appreciation. I'm just being real. I thought about this the other day. Jimmy's playing super well. He's always been really good, right? But he's playing at a different level now. And what if the Sixers would have picked him over Tobias Harris to be their wing of the future? They wouldn't have even needed James Harden, right? They would have won a championship with just Jimmy and Embiid taking the steps he has over the last 3 years since Jimmy left. That would have been amazing to watch, right? Jimmy and Embiid, and I know they were in a different place with Ben at the time. Ben was still on the come up, so they were, Philly was thinking Ben was going to be the guy, and they put their eggs in the Ben basket. But look at what that has yielded, and this is why general management is so important, right? Those people, you pay those people to see the future, and in this case, whoever was the GM of the Sixers who picked Tobias Harris and Benny over Jim Butler were clearly wrong, and that's evident by Jim's play with the Heat, and then just overlaying that with what he would have been able to do with Doc and Embiid. Again, they would have won a championship by now. Yeah, that's all I got for the Sixers and C's. We'll see. And then just real quick on the C's and the Heat, if the C's win, I do think the C's can get them. I think the experience that Jay Brown and Jay Tatum got last year serves them like the Eastern Conference Final is no longer this big thing to them, right? Like it was last year. And I think without, I'm thinking Strus, Duncan Robinson, the Martin guy can get after him defensively, but I don't know that he can stop Jaylen Brown or Tatum. So I don't know that the Heat have enough defensive prowess. I mean, to severely impact Tatum over the course of 6 or 7 games, Jimmy would have to expend a lot of energy, right, to truly get after him like he wants to. And then that still leaves Jaylen Brown, and vice versa. If Brown gets hot and Jimmy switches onto him, then you got to deal with Tatum. And we see what Tatum can do. He laid an egg for three quarters, and then he pulled a rabbit out of his hat in like 6 minutes. He hit like 5 threes, and they were pure. I mean, them things were wet. So that just shows you how good he is and how he can just change a game. I mean, it was 6 minutes. He changed the course of the Sixers' whole season in less than 6 minutes on 5 or 6 3-point shots. So just shows you how good he is and how difficult it may be for the Heat to slow both of those guys down, especially now that they've got a taste of the finals, and I think they're going to be motivated. All right, Heat versus Knicks. So review of that series. I am personally glad for Jimmy Butler. I like stories like Jimmy Butler. I mean, the guy literally was on the bench for the Bulls. He was not expected to be what he is now. When he came into this league, he was, I think, a hustle player at best, a 3-and-D guy, and he's fought and trained, and he's prepared for everything he's got, and he wanted it, and he went out and got it, and you can't do anything but tip your hat and pop your collar to a guy like that. So I'm always rooting for Jimmy. Like I said earlier, I think it's official. Jimmy Butler, as of May 13, 2023, is a better player than Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and I will stick by that. Being on the court is important. You can't just coast off a legacy, which in Kawhi's case is what he's doing. Paul George is kind of what he's doing. They haven't really won anything in 4 years that they've been together. In the meantime, Jimmy Butler made the finals. I know it was the bubble finals. I think they made the ECF last year or the year before. And that Miami team is not that good. Bam hasn't really taken a step like I thought he would. Tyler hasn't really taken a step like I thought he would. I mean, it's basically Jimmy and the Heatles, and he's making it happen. So I don't think they beat the C's, but it'll be good to, it'll be fun to watch those wings get after it. For the New York Knicks, I watched them. Unfortunately, I think 4 or 5 seed is their ceiling. Right? I'm not a huge Brunson fan. I love his scoring. I don't like his playmaking. For others, I don't think he's dynamic enough. When I think of dynamic small guards, I think of guys like Derrick Rose in his prime, Kai Irving, AI. I don't think he's dynamic. And let me just explain to you guys. We're going up against a dynamic player versus just a guy who knows how to get shots and score. It takes a lot out of you, right? Having to guard Kyrie Irving, who's that fast and who can put pressure on and who can put the brakes on and who can make you work defensively is a lot different than having to guard Jalen Brunson, who you can kind of stay in front of, who's more herky-jerky, who knows how to get shots, who plays angles. Yes, a point is a point, a bucket is a bucket, but playing against a dynamic small guard like Isaiah Thomas, and I'm talking about Pistons Isaiah, Kai Irving, AI, is much different than playing against a guard like Brunson. And I don't think he's dynamic enough to lead the Knicks to the top of the Eastern Conference regular season or postseason. I just don't. I was high on RJ coming out of Duke. I think RJ, what we're seeing is what RJ will be. And I know he averaged 18 or 19 this year, but again, it's not the same, right? For example, C.J. McCollum in Portland scoring 20 or 30 was not the same as Dame, right? Dame is dynamic, right? C.J.'s not dynamic, so it's not the same impact on the opposing team. The shots are different. The timing of the shots are different. The way he gets the shots are different. The way he can demoralize a team is different. And Brunson doesn't have that. Barrett doesn't have that. And I don't think Randall has that. I've watched Randall for closely since he got to New York. And I think New York, because I watched him in L.A. and I watched him in New Orleans, and he was on his way to journeyman status. And I think New York has been more of a system and an opportunity for him in terms of what they're missing than kind of what he's added to that team. So I don't like that big three. I don't think they have any dynamism in that big three. And I do think that dynamism matters, right? I think Kobe Bryant, Giannis, you think of some of the champions over LeBron, you think of Dwayne Wade. They don't have that in any of those three players. Mostly those guys are below the rim, system, get angles, exploit matchups type of players, and I don't think that gets them more than a 4 or 5. So I did want to say this. Spoelstra said that after the game that he didn't understand, and I'm paraphrasing, he didn't understand how Jalen Brunson wasn't an all-star or all-NBA. And for me, I think when you say something like that, and we see this a lot of times around the all-star ballots, I think when you say something like that, you have to say who you would replace. So I think when coaches and media personnel say, how did such and such not make the All-NBA or make the All-Star team, I think the corollary to that should be he should have replaced such and such. Because then people would stop talking that reckless, right? All-Star, sure. Maybe there was a player on the All-Star team. I don't have the roster in front of me. Maybe there was a player on that All-Star roster that Jalen could have replaced. All-NBA, no. He's not better than Luka. He's not better than SGA. He's not better than Steph. He's not better than Don Mitchell. He's not better than Foxy. He's not better than Dame Lillard. If it's positionless, I said maybe he gets that spot for Julius Randle. But to be quite honest, Ja Morant would probably be my guess. And if Ja didn't have, hadn't gone to that kind of end-of-season crisis that he went through, he would have easily been on one of these three teams. He probably would have been on the first team since the Grizz were in second place. So, all right, I'm gone. But next week we are also going to talk about, because I've got this debate with my brother, we also are going to talk about reseeding the playoffs. I think that Adam Silver should seriously consider reseeding the playoffs. I think the goal should be to get the value of the regular season, so that if an 8 beats a 1, like we had in the case of, I think, Miami and Milwaukee, then the next best team should get the weakest team left. And that's my opinion. So I think in the East you would have had let's look at the Eastern. Yeah, you would have had the C's would have been playing the Knicks, and the Sixers the C's would have been playing the Heat, and the Sixers would have been playing the Knicks. And quite honestly, we should have got that would have yielded the series that we should have got, which was Celtics versus 76ers in the EC. I mean, can you imagine if we're 2 weeks forward and we got this drama that we got with the Celtics and Sixers, but we got it with the ECF, where all eyes were on the ECF, and we're going into a Game 7 to start June with Celtics at 6 or Sixers at Celtics, Game 7. That would have been crazy. So I think they need to take a real look at reseeding the playoffs. I do think they need to do this in NCAA as well, but we'll get into that next week. So I'm going to sign off here. Thank you guys for listening. If you are listening, you're listening to my inaugural episode. And thank you guys. All right, I'm out.